Welcome to our first podcast. And today I'm very fortunate to have my first guest and my very good friend, Dr. Joanna Jarecki, who is a psychiatrist. And today, hopefully, we'll have a great opportunity to kind of give a little background on who we are and what we're going to do, what we're working on, and what this all has to do with you and how this is going to help you out. So the first thing I guess I'll touch upon is, what does a psychiatrist do? And then we can go from there.
Great. So a psychiatrist is a medical doctor, so a physician that essentially specializes in brain health and mental health. So anything that can impact an individual's mental health, whether that's anxiety, depression, ADHD, bipolar disorder, anything related to someone's thinking and emotional life and health. For myself personally, a lot of what I do is I support individuals who may be struggling with certain issues. I'm also very passionate about, working with people to also, help them wherever they're at. But then also learn about, like, how does your brain work? How does your mind work? And how can you learn ways, and your body, and how can you learn ways to sort of optimize your brain, your mind, and your body, so that you can, feel good, and so that you can be functioning really well in your life, and so that you can really live your best life. So
it's a pretty good answer, I'd say. I think today more than ever, there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of stress. We see people with post-traumatic stress syndrome or injury. People are running around, their brains are busy, but I still think, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's a stigma about psychiatrists and what it is that they do, and they only treat crazy people.
Right.
And I've been fortunate enough over the last 2 years to work closely with you, and we're merging, martial arts training, fitness training, and of all things, joint health, and making this connection with the mind.
That's right.
And I think we've both been traveling towards the same path. Now, I know one of your specialties is mindfulness.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about mindfulness? And just for the audience, so you know, we're going to get to you, and it's how we're going to help you. So just keep that in mind as you listen.
Absolutely. So mindfulness essentially, I think one of the best ways to describe it is, it's really paying attention and learning how to train yourself how to pay attention in the present moment, so in the here and now. And an important element of mindfulness is that when we're paying attention, we also want to learn how to pay attention without judgment, right? And also with intention. So there's sort of, you're deciding where you're going to put your attention, and wherever your attention is, to kind of be there with whatever that is without judgment. And oftentimes, so I think the word mindfulness gets used a lot now, and I think it's becoming increasingly, a lot in business and health and, all types of setting. And mindfulness is actually just one type of meditation approach. And essentially, at the crux of it, we use the breath and paying attention to the breath in order to get anchored to the present moment. And when your attention wanders elsewhere, we just gently bring it back to the breath. So that's kind of what the practice looks like.
Right.
But why do we care? Why is that so powerful? Why is it being used everywhere? I think it's such, when you do this and you practice this over time, just like with physical training, right? And sort of lifting weights, and every time you lift a weight, you get stronger. With attentional training, you can actually strengthen not only your attention, but you can actually create really positive, healthy changes in the brain.
Right.
So what ends up happening is that over time, you start to develop self-awareness. So you start to develop awareness of your thoughts, your emotions, the sensations in your body. And why does that matter? I think we often spend our lives in sort of this autopilot mode. We don't even know what we're thinking or feeling, and we're kind of just acting or living our lives almost, unconsciously a lot of the time. And what mindfulness allows you to do is bring this awareness to, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I doing? What is my body kind of telling me? And once you have that awareness, then you can actually start looking at, your thoughts and your emotions, and you start to have a choice of what, how, you start to recognize, maybe like, am I having thoughts that are not, healthy or not serving me? And you also start to have this recognition that you are not your thoughts, you are not your emotions, right?
I have to interject here because sometimes I see these apps, I see these programs. I mean, you can download them on your phone, and I think people get confused with some of these terms that you're using, or some of these strategies. Like, who cares if I have a lot of thoughts?
Right.
Like, I don't think everyone necessarily understands that. And a long time ago, I didn't understand that. I didn't understand what a busy mind was.
Right.
I just actually didn't know any of this, until I started getting educated and doing courses, and then actually experiencing it myself. So let me ask you, like, what would be an example of this mindfulness? And what does it have to do with what we want to help you out with, which is stress reduction, pain management, chronic pain? This is all connected. So could you give us an example?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, oftentimes where, our minds are, they're designed to think. So if you have a lot of thoughts, great. Your brain is fine. There's nothing wrong with having a lot of...
I don't know if mine's designed to think all the time.
But, like, thoughts can be very helpful. Like, that's, part of what makes us human, and part of, I mean, it's great. You want to have an active mind, because there are amazing things that we can do with that, with thoughts and thinking. But the thing is that oftentimes as you go about in your daily life, a lot of our thoughts can be either, let's say, like, about the past. So you might be like ruminating or thinking about, like, let's say you got into an argument with someone and it could have been a week ago, but you're still replaying it and reliving it in your head, and it's causing a lot of stress or like really strong emotions to be coming up, and you might not even be aware of it.
Right.
Or oftentimes we might be plagued with a lot of worries about the future, right? So all of these thoughts about the past, all of these thoughts about the future, and just, your mind is just so busy with all of these different thoughts, and here you are in the present moment, and sometimes we can actually miss what's going on in the present moment. So you and I can be having this, very interesting, engaging discussion, yet if I'm thinking about what was going on last week, first of all, you're missing your life, right?
Right.
And then second of all, then you're not necessarily making, the best decisions or having the best responses for that moment, because you're so caught up in, the past or the future. And that can cause a lot of stress. So there's a lot of evidence that the more that we're actually connected with what's happening right now, it's very, so there's less stress, there's less sort of suffering, there's less anxiety, we feel more of a sense of well-being and contentment, versus if we're always in the past or in the future, then that can lead to a lot of stress and a lot of, health difficulties, right?
I know I've, through my own training with functional range conditioning and using the functional range system, I've come to understand on a much deeper level that your CNS, your central nervous system, can actually cause you almost phantom pain, where people are stressed out. Right. And when they're stressed out, they get back pain. Right. Or they're stressed out and they get a shoulder pinch. Right. And they don't make the connection. They don't make the connection of, why do we need this type of training or this type of awareness? Right. They're using all kind of pain medications to deal with a shoulder. Yeah. That's not even a shoulder problem. Yeah. It's a head problem.
Well, that's as you're going through life and you're experiencing stressful events, and there's sort of daily life stressors that you're dealing with, family, work, and again, a lot of things that are happening internally. If you're not aware of that, right, then what can happen is, like, your body keeps score. You might not be aware, but your body's, if we're anxious or if we're tense, if we're stressed, like, there are our body, might be, we might clench our fists, we might tighten our muscles. And, over time, that actually does stress the body.
Right.
And our body manifests kind of those emotions and those thoughts and that stress. So,
right.
and, if we're not paying attention to that, our body might actually be giving us signals, right? Like maybe you're anxious and you've got some chest tightness because you're feeling a lot of anxiety or stress. And if you're not paying attention to that, then you may not stop and say, hold on a second, I'm feeling stressed or I'm feeling anxious. What's going on?
Right.
Like how can I take care of myself, or what can I do to make this better, right?
Right.
So, and over time, your body and your brain and your mind can pay a price, right?
And a price we do pay, I think a lot of us pay a price in using medications to deal with this kind of stress or pain, which is segue to my next question.
Right.
Also, I want to remind you that Dr. Joanna is your clinician. Like you have patients, medical doctors. So you have a lot of experience working with patients.
Yes.
And giving them the appropriate medication.
Yes.
But I think now this connection is not saying that medication doesn't work, because it does work in some cases.
Absolutely.
But bringing ourselves to more of a mental connection with our bodies.
Yeah, and I mean, medications, I'm a medical doctor, right? And I have a lot of respect for, Western medicine. I have a lot of respect for medications. I think medications can be life-changing, sometimes life-saving, right? So we're not saying that medications are not good. They can be fantastic. The thing is that medications, though, what they do is they address the symptoms, right? So if I'm anxious, I can take a medication that can help me to feel calm. However, two things about that is that, number one, well, when I'm not taking the medication, then I'm anxious again, right? So the amazing thing about using something like mindfulness or just is that it's all you need is yourself. You're using the power of your own mind and of your own breath, of your own awareness and attention to heal yourself, right? So there's this incredible tool that you can then develop so that you become your own medicine, you become your own source of like healing and getting better, and you can strengthen it over time.
But
yeah.
My question is this science-based? Is this proven? All this stuff that you're talking about, is there research? Is there there evidence of some sort? Is this real stuff, or is this hocus pocus?
Well, that's a great question and a very important question, right? Because just because it feels good, or there might be anecdotal stories about this changing people's lives, but what does the science tell us? And there's been a huge explosion of research in the medical sphere on what are the benefits of meditation or mindfulness, and does this actually make a difference, right? So first of all, on a brain level, what's very cool is that just even participating in an 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction program.
Like something we're going to do.
Yes, very.
Thought I'd throw that out there.
That's right. So just an 8-week program can actually change the brain. So we have this frontal part of our brain, which is sort of like the CEO, right? So that's where we do our planning, our thinking, this part of our brain. Then sort of deeper inside in the middle part of our brain is the emotional centers. So our fight or flight, the amygdala, right? So that it's kind of like that threat radar or that alarm. And we know that oftentimes that can be sort of, it turns on a little bit too much, right? Like there's so many, again, stresses and things going on in our life. And sometimes we can be sort of taken over by the emotional brain. And that's not bad. Emotions are good. We want to be informed by emotions, but we don't want to be controlled by them, right? So we still want that CEO online. And the amazing thing is that with mindfulness training, even just 8 weeks, when we look at images of people's brains, we can see, and not just sort of a static or like image in one time, but even when we're looking at the activity in their brain, we see that there's actually more activity in that CEO part, and that stress response or that amygdala or that fight or flight center, there's less activity, or it's calmed. And what happens is that there's actually a greater connection between the two, so that we're not ignoring emotions. It's not that we're not experiencing them. We're being informed by them, but then the CEO is coming on and saying, okay, how do I want to respond to this, right? Like, do I want to be alarmed or do we want to take a breath and sort of calm down? Is this, so it's incredible because it's like doing neurosurgery on the brain. There's actually more brain cells in the areas where we want there to be more brain cells, and there's stronger connections, which is incredible because you're again power of your own mind, and you're actually changing the brain.
Right.
So that's one benefit, and the other thing is there have been a lot of studies. So there's about 6,000 studies up until different levels of quality. They're not all high quality, but many very high level.
Studies,
peer-reviewed studies that have shown us the benefits of mindfulness on reducing stress, reducing anxiety, reducing symptoms of depression, reducing chronic pain, reducing suffering, particularly related to chronic pain, increasing levels of happiness, increasing levels of well-being, even when we're looking at physical measures. So of course I'm a psychiatrist, so I'm interested in the mental health aspect, but even when we're looking at blood pressure, even when we're looking at the risk of having a heart attack, if someone's already had a heart attack, and when they participate in a mindfulness-based program, their risk of having another heart event is actually lower, right? So again, there's a lot of research that is showing us that, again, just with that, using our breath and using our mind, it's actually creating changes not just in the brain, but also in the body.
Right. So now I'm going to interject here. So that kind of covers the brain part. And sometimes you might have heard people say like mind, body, soul, mind, body, spirit.
Right.
And there seems to be always this break. Like, in the English language, we're using 3 words. But I think more and more, especially with our work, we confidently do not separate those words anymore. There's a flow that goes between the brain, between breathing, and between physically moving. And you brought up the breath. So is there evidence on the breath, on breathing? We have so many apps and so many programs, but we will have the best program on breath work. Where does that fit in? Because you've mentioned it, you said it several times, the breath. Where does that fit in to all of this?
Yeah, so I think, again, the breath, it's a powerful tool. It's something that is with us all the time. And it's such a important, I think, it's so connected to our physiology.
It's a scientific. So I'm going to jump in here now and talk about breath work. So I've worked with breathing concepts probably since I was 11 through my martial arts training. So martial arts training always has an element of, say, the Eastern culture. So sometimes it's straight up Buddhism. They take some stuff from Buddhism or Zen training. My background was a lot of Japanese training. So we incidentally did breathing techniques, breathing controls, and I felt all the physiological pluses from that. I didn't know at the time. I was too young. And then as I started to take more courses, more training, and even in current coaching courses, we understand how important breath work is, controlling our breathing, what it does chemically to our body if you don't get enough oxygen, if you don't use the right muscles. So it's the impact cannot be said enough. And we have tons of research, tons of case studies showing people that were not breathing properly. They didn't even know how to breathe. They didn't even know how to use their diaphragm. We strengthened their diaphragm. We got them to breathe through their nose so they could oxygenate deeper rather than mouth breathing. They've even done studies, these are amazing studies, on lung cancer. Lungs, like the cancer, where it starts in the lung will be dependent on how you breathe. So it's some incredible...
So the areas that are deprived of oxygen.
You got it.
So the more we oxygenate, the healthier that tissue is.
You
right?
got it.
Yeah.
And the healthier your entire body is.
Yeah.
So you have a brain that we're getting healthy.
Yes.
With specific training, which we refer to mindfulness. You'll hear us use some other terms, meditation, neural flow, but all of them based on the research. They have pretty good research on mindfulness training. They actually have some very good research on different types of meditation as well. That
Studies.
that you can see.
And at this level, like even, there's different levels, right, of studies and of evidence. And mindfulness, it's been studied. We have enough now so that people can actually start to compile many studies and put them together to see,
Right.
okay, which makes it more powerful, right? Because then we have a larger group.
Like comparative studies,
And so even on that level, so meta-analyses or systematic reviews that are showing that yes, this works, right?
Right.
So we're talking about high-level research, not just sort of
Right.
little studies. So
Now, I know that when we got together, when we started to train together, you came from a background of using breath work at a certain level, as a certain tool.
Yes.
You might hear us use the term anchoring. Literally, we
Yeah.
anchor ourselves. We use a focus pointer. It becomes the focal point. You might also hear us say practice, the focal point or the anchor of your practice. But it's what you're concentrating at the time so that your mind doesn't wander, or
Right.
just trying to keep things in one place. So using the breath is a really excellent way to do that.
yes.
But now we've gone a step further, and we're actually getting into the deeper physiological changes or the connections with breath work, and studying the actual movements of the ribs, the muscles that are involved,
That's right.
expansion of the lungs. And
That's right.
we look at breath work as loading. You are loading your body and teaching your body to become stronger and to increase capacity. So if you're used to general mindfulness and general meditation, they don't always approach it that way. Where we approach breath work like you're lifting weights. We want to progressively
Right.
load you so that you can become stronger, and the stronger your capacity, the better you can oxygenate. The better you can oxygenate, the better your body, your tissue works, the better your brain works.
That's right. Absolutely. And I think that's something that I really sort of blew my mind, right, when I started working with you, because again, the breath is used in mindfulness as a very important tool, and and there are a lot of benefits to even just observing the breath as it is and not consciously manipulating it. But then when I started to learn about all of the different ways that we can actually then start to control our breath, and when we understand what that's doing and how that's increasing the oxygenation to the tissues, it's amazing, right? Because it just takes that to a whole other level, and it gives you another tool that you can use to optimize your brain, to optimize your body. It's very powerful, right? And it's so simple. It's always with us. It's something that everyone has, right? So
yeah, I think the people that I've met have never realized how important breathing is. They're like, well, breathing is breathing. And I don't think it's that simple. It's not that simple. Breathing is life. You cannot survive without breathing. It's something that we do all day, but it's the quality of breathing. And there's so much research that can indicate better health when you breathe better.
Absolutely.
The better your lungs are, the better your capacity is to there's an exchange of gases, of bringing in oxygen, having it come into your body, and then the chemical reaction, and then we expel carbon dioxide. So there's this whole cycle that I don't think the average person thinks about a lot,
Right.
but it can affect us deeply.
And it's interesting because even as a physician, I mean, I have thought about it. I knew about the breath, and there are some techniques that I would use to teach people how to use the breath, for example, to create calm in the nervous system, because the breath is very much connected to our physiological response of that fight or flight or that stress response. And, part of like when we start to breathe or hyperventilate, right, we're breathing more quickly. Well, part of that is, again, to kind of to prepare our body for a threat, right?
Yeah, you might not be familiar, but we split the nervous system, so some of those things can be like you're in a parasympathetic state or in a sympathetic state.
That's right.
And you're breathing. We actually can train to bring us down into a kind of the parasympathetic state, correct? Where we're chill. We might just be eating some food or watching a show or whatever. And then that sympathetic nervous state where heightened, the heart rate goes up.
Right.
And advice that we would give people is, hey, take a deep breath. There's a reason why we say that.
Absolutely.
Take a deep breath. Slow it down. They put the brown paper bag over the person's. So I think people don't realize, like, this is so common knowledge in the sense of we would say that, we would have that expression, take a deep breath to
Yeah.
calm down.
Yeah.
And that has a direct connection
Yes.
to the physiological action reactions
Absolutely.
to the breath.
You can actually calm your body and your mind, and you can change your physiological state just by using your breath. I mean, it's
Yeah.
amazing, right?
It's a central part to combative training. So that's how I became a little bit more, if we can say, familiar or expert around those specific types of reaction actions, because our lives depend on it.
Right.
So if we don't have control over our breath, someone dies or someone makes a big mistake, and it's
Yes.
that traumatic. So becoming well-versed in breathing and what breathing does for the body became paramount to my training and training people that would be frontline officers.
Right.
So,
well, and that was incredible for me, because as a psychiatrist, part of what I work with a lot is, helping people to understand and to help calm that fight or flight or that stress response. And then so learning from you, it really took my understanding of that to a whole other level, because you have actually learned that in the ultimate, like in those life and death experiences where
fire.
It's all fire, in the fire, right?
In the fire.
So in the fire, and that every breath counts, right?
Amen, every breath counts.
And it can really be, and I think that in those examples, like in that moment, it can save your life, right?
Yep, absolutely.
But if we think about, we may not be in those types of like life or death situations every day, but we can, be in other situations like stresses at work, at home, just life, right? And think about the cumulative impact of your breath over the course of your lifetime.
Yeah.
So if you can learn to use your breath more effectively, you essentially are optimizing and potentially saving your life, right? Over
Absolutely.
the course of...
I think people don't realize that they are in a combative state.
Right.
That, whether you're in the boardroom or you're being cut off in the street or you just had an argument with someone,
Yes.
like you are experiencing the same thing that I might be experiencing when someone pulls out a gun or there's,
Yes.
a knife that comes out in a fight or, whatever situation I was in.
Yes.
I think people don't realize that they are the same,
Yes.
what's making you panic. It's the same physiological changes as what's making me panic or
Right.
and they don't know about adrenaline dump. They don't know about what we call backlash. So just imagine throughout the day how many times you've gone into that combative state, not knowing that you've gone into a
Right.
sympathetic nervous. How would I properly phrase that? Sympathetic nervous state.
That high arousal or that
High arousal.
heightened
Actually, that's it.
arousal state, right?
So high arousal and low arousal. That's right.
Yeah,
That's a better way to say it.
And don't get me wrong,
yes.
because we should also highlight the fact that high arousal state, it's not necessarily bad. Again, it can save your life, right?
Such a good point.
It can also help you to perform.
Such a good
right?
point. Yes.
So if you have a prepresentation at work or
Yes.
school, or if you have something that's really important, like you want a little bit of that arousal.
harness it.
You don't want to be completely like, chill. Like we don't want to be a couch potato either, right?
Yes.
Like there's a time where we actually want to harness, but the more you understand it and the more you can learn and kind of, I love that word, harness it, right? Because then you can control it.
You're managing yourself
manage
through
it.
the day.
You can even use it to your advantage,
Yes.
rather than it being controlling you, and then it's like this
Yeah.
runaway train, right? Where you're in
Yeah.
a state of panic, and then maybe
This reminds me, like even when I'm training athletes and we're preparing for competition, I'm not telling them to be like, that's not what I want. That's not
might get
the
knocked
state.
out.
Yeah, that's not the state that I want. I'm actually having their heart rate up. We work optimal, gross motor actions about 145 beats per minute. I don't want them at like 80 beats per minute.
Right.
I want their heart rate up. I want the stress up. Stress is good. Stress brings
Yes.
adrenaline. Stress brings that whole cocktail of chemicals
Yes.
that allows a mother to lift a car when her child is caught under a wheel.
That's right.
This is a good thing. So
Yeah.
being able to latch onto these formulas. So
yes,
we've got the brain, we've got the breath,
yeah,
and lastly, we have our body.
yes,
And again, so Joanna and I have come to the conclusion that there are no words, that the words should not be separated. And hopefully you're picking up on that so far, that everything is connected. There's no like mind, body, spirit, or mind, body, soul, or however you want to say it. it's just like one word. If I could say it in one word, like that's how I would say it. So we refer to a flow. So if you hear us keep talking about this flow, you know, in FRS system, they talk about bioflow.
Right.
And bioflow is that, you know, we don't just talk about our muscles. Like if I'm rubbing my muscle, I'm actually, there's a lot of things that are going on just with this. Like we're completely connected. Every cell touches the next cell. So you can't look at the body as an anatomy in the anatomy book anymore. It's just a flow of tissue. The bone flows to the ligaments, and the ligaments to the, you know, the tendon to the muscle, like everything. There's stuff tears apart because it's connected. It doesn't fall apart.
Right.
And that distinction should be made there. So the same thing, you literally would be tearing your brain and tearing your breath.
Right.
If it doesn't work with the body, you're actually damaging yourself. You're tearing yourself apart, literally. So that's telling us that everything is connected.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting, right? Because I think historically we've always separated like brain, body. I mean, even in medicine, right? So psychiatry is seen as kind of being, you know, we're like the head doctors or the mind doctors or the brain doctors, and it's not, you know, like there's literally a direct connection.
Right.
And there's a flow, right? Your nervous system connected to your entire body, and you know, is directly connected to your brain, and there's no separation. It's not like all of a sudden here there's like a border. It's a new, you know, it's all connected. And also our mind, our thoughts, our you know, it's really our emotions. Like, where do our emotions lie, right? We experience it in our bodies. But our bodies inform us of how we're feeling. But also that can be tied to, you know, your thoughts and behaviors. So like, there's no, like, where do you draw a boundary? It all flows into, and one part of the system informs the other part of the system.
An infinite cycle.
Yes,
You're always referring to that.
Yes.
I think now at this point, you know, where we really locked together and we were like, we need to develop something here. We have stuff that's researched, a lot of evidence for it, a lot of known facts here.
Yes.
That's already, they already have the studies. But I think they've always been separated.
Yes.
You know, like you have meditation, mindfulness, psychiatry itself, like over here, and then you have like fitness and the body and movement and mobility and whatever. But we actually see that there's a deep connection, and we were looking for how could we help people with stress reduction, anxiety, trauma, chronic pain. I mean, that chronic pain, like, the statistics from the WHO, that's the World Health Organization, still says that progressively lower back pain is on the rise. It's not on, we have better surgery. But better surgery, they can replace discs now. Better technology, better therapies, and it's still on the rise, which tells us something.
And the number one cause of disability worldwide. Right, chronic pain.
Yeah,
right?
Chronic pain, and specifically in my experience, myself included, but I deal with people with chronic lower back pain. And just to give you kind of a background for myself, is I have 2 new replaced hips, and I'll probably have to have in the next year replaced shoulders. So the therapy that we're talking about, the healing powers of this program that we're talking about, it's not too late for me, because I mean, that's why I am where I am, because we've been able to apply it. But we're trying to catch people before they have to.
Right.
You know, this was 20 years of being a fighter, you know, professional fighting, and just beating up my body. If I knew, how's that saying? If I knew then what I know now, would be a completely different story.
Right.
So I think the last phase is understanding the biology, the actual real biology, the chemistry, the physics of what's actually going on in our body when we move. And I think that's where you and I have made the deepest kind of epiphany and connection of how can we help people, how can we get real results, results that have already been researched, but in our format, in our systematic approach. And I was enlightened when I first started with functional range systems and the functional range conditioning. And what I found very quickly is if I could make this biological connection and understand how my body worked, I could get better. And all my pain went away. And what I found out is that our nerve endings, the communication of how our body works, deepest is in our joints. I've never heard anyone talk about this in chronic pain or healing.
As a physician, I had never
Right.
heard, I wasn't aware of that. Right?
So manual therapists come in,
Yeah.
and nothing against manual therapy. Of course, we need manual therapy, and of course, we endorse, different type of therapies. But it's how they're utilized, and what we do know, and this is like you need to research this, but physically, the way we're wired, if I can manipulate my joint, and I can make my joint move properly, everything around it starts to move properly. And when I want to communicate with my body, I communicate first through the joint. So I'll give you an example. I have 2 new hips. When I went to just normal therapy, it was a joke, right? They give you, leg strengthening exercises. So I worked on my quads, my hamstrings, my butt, but I had 2 new hips.
Right.
So no one talked about my hip. It was really weird.
Right.
Like I'm coming to rehabilitate my hip,
Yeah.
and my back was sore, of course. And so I started to do this training, and it included breathing, and it included isometric tension of the body. And, we won't go into too much detail here, but the connection was when you get in touch with your body, and not hocus pocus, but like when you consciously move a joint with your mind, you consciously, like say I want to move my shoulder, I consciously isolate my shoulder, and I do it over and over and over. If I had sore shoulder blades or a bad back, it's because I was using my shoulder blades and back like a shoulder. So I start to communicate with my shoulder, and my shoulder starts to become a shoulder and does what a shoulder is supposed to do. And then the back pain that I was getting, or my shoulder blade pain, goes away because it's not being abused.
Right.
Like it's a shoulder.
Right.
So what does this have to do with anything? We've got the mind, we've got the breath,
Yeah.
and now we have a real
Yeah.
biological proven connection. When we say get in touch with yourself, what was the other terms you used? Like
Self-awareness.
self-awareness.
Right.
But now it's real.
Yeah.
It's not hocus pocus.
Yeah.
And we actually could get people in a very short
Yes.
amount of time, because we've done this with you, right? You
Yes.
remember your feet? Remember when
Yeah.
we were trying to talk to your feet? It sounds weird, but like just trying to move your toes, you thought you could?
Well, when you even said to do it in the first place, I was like, I didn't really understand why. I'm like, what do you mean, move my toe? Like, who cares about? I didn't realize how disconnected I had been.
Yes.
Or that, like, I didn't know that you could, that your shoulder blades and your shoulder, for example, had different. Like, I'd never thought about what those joints do. Why do I have them? How do they work properly? I had kind of ignored my joints. I never, no one had ever.
What's that have to do with anything, right?
And I went through 4 years of medical school, 5 years of a resident. Like, I learned a lot about muscles. I learned a lot about, we would learn about like joints in terms of how they get worn down or damaged, but never that you can actually start to work with your joint and increase your joint health, and at least not in my training.
Right.
So it was amazing. And I mean, to come from a mindful, like, of course, I had learned so much about how do you become self-aware in terms of your thoughts and your emotions and your body. But this, all of a sudden, when I started to do the FRC training with you, it was amazing that as soon as I started to get more connected to my joints, that was, I think, I started to achieve this level of body awareness that I had never had before.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. And also just the awareness of when you're doing it, you're actually checking in with yourself, and you realize, like, oh, okay, I've got some, maybe some neck pain over here, and you notice it and you can catch it early on.
Yes.
And then the system gives you like something that you can do about it yourself.
Yeah, I want to jump in on here because I don't know if you recall, so Joanna had come in for our training session. We train 5 days a week, by the way. We're always training, so she's not in a white lab coat behind a desk. She's a doer, so she does what she teaches,
and I need the training so that I can function for the rest of my day.
So you had come in with a little bit of neck pain, and
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember.
Oh,
You had,
I remember.
we call those sticky spots, and so we worked on it. Became aware where it was, and did the movements, connected, and actually you were able to take care of it, or
It's gone within a few days, right? And it made me realize that in the past, like if I wasn't working with you, if I didn't understand the system, and first of all how to become aware that it's happening, and second of all what to do about it myself, right? Then I probably, it may have been weeks or months before I even noticed, and then I could be dealing with chronic pain or all sorts of issues down the road, right? So this really it really kind of helped me to make that connection, and the power of, oh my goodness, being connected to your body, and having that ability to control and to sort of have an intervention using yourself, right, as the tool.
I think that I like that word, but it's like the control your body. The more you control your body, the more you control your breath, the more you control your mind, actually the more fluid you become. And not control, the word control is not like a harsh word.
Right.
It's when I get in a car, I'm not controlling the car.
Right.
I'm just steering it.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I mean when I say control. Control yourself. Control your body.
But that's actually an amazing analogy, though, because again, when we're talking about mindfulness, whether it's referring to your mind or your body, at the end of the day, you want to be in the driver's seat of your life.
Right.
Like that's like you want to be the one driving your life, your thoughts, your emotions, how you're, and your body, right? Because otherwise, if you don't have this awareness and then a practice that allows you to intentionally develop a system where you're managing it and driving it into the direction that you want, I mean, unfortunately, otherwise you're gonna be controlled by other things, and then you're gonna end up in pain or suffering, psychologically or whatever, right? So I think a lot of this is about becoming that driver, like being in the driver's seat of every element of your being, right?
I think now, we've had a couple of years at this. I mean, you've had, like, I guess 15 years plus in the medical field, just studying, researching, learning, practicing. Myself, about 30 years in the kind of fitness arena. We're both continually researching and reading, which is really important. There's a lot of literature out there, and you have to look at the pros and cons. You have to look at the nay and the yay, and you just have to be on top of it. Absolutely. And you have to be ready to change your mind about something. I think that's probably the most important thing.
Very important.
I know right now we are on the cusp of something really amazing, and I know I'm personally invested in chronic pain.
Yes.
And I have been able to apply these teachings and lessons to thousands of clients over the years. If you don't use it, you will lose it, literally. And that is a biological statement. That is pure biology. So when someone says, don't use it, like if you've hurt something and they don't want you to use it anymore, it is the worst advice that you could ever be given.
Which is the current paradigm, right? Someone has an injury, they go to see their medical practitioner or whomever. And I mean, I have many patients with chronic pain, and they've been told that, well, they can't use this, right? So they're like, well, I can't do this because of this injury. And really then over the years, what happens is, more immobility and more damage. And like you said, you don't use it, you lose it, right? You lose that connection.
I am more flexible now in my hips, more mobile. And that's a whole other conversation, the difference between mobility and flexibility. But I am more mobile now using these strategies, using this system, than I was when I had 2 of my own hips.
Wow.
And the same with my whole body. Like, I have 2 new hips, and I'm probably more mobile and flexible than your average Joe, let alone people that are training. You yourself, you had a lot of passive range from yoga training,
Yes.
which will be for another conversation. We love yoga.
Yes.
We just
A lot of respect for
yes,
yoga.
we just approach it in a different way. But if you train passively, then you get passive results. And we don't train passively. We train actively, and we get active results, which kind of brings us closing to the end of the conversation. So we have a psychiatrist with a mindfulness-based approach. That was a mouthful. And you have a long-time martial artist and mobility specialist. I just want to give a special shout out to the FRS, or Functional Range System, to Dr. Andrea Spino, who has created the FRS system, which we use extensively in our approach.
Yes.
And we're really looking forward to getting our program out there and changing people's lives, literally changing people's lives, getting your brains to move, getting your breath to move, getting your body to move. And again, always remembering, if you don't move it, you will lose it with your pain. And I know there's a lot of people out there with chronic pain.
Absolutely.
I feel your pain.
Yeah.
And I think the fusion of Western medicine, Eastern philosophy, Eastern medicine, and all this amazing current research that shows us the actual physiological changes that occur in the body with movement, and the combination of both of our kind of background and experiences.
Yes. And again, sort of, I think our main goal is to empower people wherever you're at, whether you're, regardless of what level of pain you're experiencing, whether it's physical, psychological.
So, actually, so that would be a question before we end. Who is this good for? Who are we trying to help? Who can do this?
Anyone, everyone,
Anyone and everyone? You don't
I-
need special training. You don't have to have a big brain, small brain.
I had no physical training when we started working together.
Okay.
And
So anyone can do this kind of mindfulness stuff,
anyone
meditation,
can do this,
moving.
because the beauty is that I think mindfulness and the FRC system, FRS system, it meets you where you are at.
Okay.
And no matter where you are at, then you start to learn about, your body and that connection. You start to learn about your mind and the connection. And then you can start to learn tools on, like, now how do I make it better, right? So that could be, maybe I want less pain, physical pain. Maybe I want less stress in my life. Or maybe maybe you don't have pain, and maybe you just want to increase your athletic performance, or, you just want to increase your attention and your functioning in life, right? So I think this is really, we certainly, I think there's a huge role for anyone that is suffering with chronic pain, huge role for anyone that's suffering with any kind of mental health conditions, because again, it really does address sort of emotional and emotions and thoughts, but as well as integrating that awareness of the body, and really kind of getting behind that driver's seat, right, of your mind and body and the whole neurobioflow system, right? So
I like it. Okay, so before we close out, I'd just like to give a special shout out to Dr. Andrea Spina, the creator of the FRS system. You can go online and look up functional range seminars. A lot of good stuff. It's all research-based. He's an incredible doctor with an incredible team, and we draw a lot of our research and information from there. So I just wanted to give a nice warm shout out for all his work that he's done.
And I also wanted to acknowledge the work of John Kabat-Zinn, and he is a professor at the University of Massachusetts, at the medical school of the University of Massachusetts, and he is the individual who actually came up with the mindfulness-based stress reduction program, and was the first person to really bring an Eastern practice, like meditation and mindfulness, into medicine, and to start studying the health benefits of medicine, initially for chronic pain, and then for, other things like anxiety and depression, and now, how to elevate well-being. So I really, I have trained in John Kabat-Zinn's approach, the mindfulness-based stress reduction approach, that has a lot of research supporting it, and again have found it to be very effective. It's been a huge influence on my work. So I also wanted to acknowledge his incredible work and that of other individuals who are now using MBSR and other mindfulness-based interventions.
And I would like to add, I would also like to acknowledge and thank you yourself as a doctor. Dr. Joanna Jarecki has actually assisted me in my understanding of how the mind works and the deeper, I guess, just a deeper understanding of how to merge this kind of information and research in your own clinical experience. Her advice and her wisdom has impacted me greatly over the last few years and helped me develop my own programs and in my own practice. So I have to thank you for that.
Well, thank you. And of course, I in turn have to thank you because I think I came from a very academic background and a clinical background, and with I think a huge appreciation for the power of the mind, the power of the brain. And not as much of an appreciation for the power of our physical bodies. And so I think you have really kind of introduced me to, the life-changing impact of, your physical body and that awareness and, building strength and building body control. And how powerful that is, not only for physical health, but also how connected that is. To the health of your brain and your mind and sort of this connection, right? And the power of the breath. So it's really taken my understanding and, you've really inspired me to kind of think about this in such a more integrated way. So.
Awesome. So together we are working towards helping all of you looking for answers, looking for solutions for your chronic pain, your stress, and many other things that we can address, and hopefully we'll see you again in our next podcast. So that's all for today, folks. Peace and love, strength and honor.
Thank you for joining.
And yes, hopefully we'll see you again.
Take care.